what advices do you have for people like me to find love in IFMR or any other B school? How can I balance a dynamic relationship if I have two girls in my life? Now let's move to the second book, The Deception Moment, which is again a totally different genre altogether. It's thriller, it's time traveling, and while talking about that book, I'd like to come through the characters of them. Even from Gauri, you mentioned in one of your previous interviews that Gauri came from the name Gauri came from Miss Gauri Khan, wife of Shah Rukh Khan, because she's one of the bold woman characters in the world, and that inspired you. And coming to the next book, protagonist Devrata Deshpande shares his name with Bhishma from Mahabharata, and Ashwath Narayan's name recalls with Ashwathama. So, how do you craft your characters? From Gauri to here, how do you craft the characters? Do you name them for? Do you get inspired from people in real life and then craft the characters, or do you write characters and then find inspirations in real life to name them? How does that go?
Okay, so thank you for the question. It's a good question, very, very interesting question. So, you mentioned about Gauri Khan here. I know nothing about Mrs. Gauri Khan except that she is a wife of the superstar Shah Rukh. But in one of the interviews with Gauri Khan, in that she has mentioned that earlier years when Shah Rukh Khan was upcoming, because he was married then, he was married even before he entered the industry, right? So he was always in demand among women, okay, because of his stature. So she has mentioned in that interview that it was a struggling work initially for her to retain him with her. Okay. And then later Shah Rukh Khan understood the value of Gauri, and then they became an inseparable pair, which we are all happy about. But that line actually instigated me to name this character as Gauri. Okay, because if you read the novel, Gauri does the similar thing, yes, right? And coming to the deception moment, I named all the characters behind Mahabharata because if you see the deception moment itself is an encapsulation of Mahabharata. If at all Mahabharata happens in 2025 and all the characters comes to earth and does a Mahabharata kind of a thing, how it will be is the idea behind. So naming the characters, generally I don't generally explicitly name just because I like somebody. I first frame the story, and in that story, if a character is inspiring, I think people like me who are writing can understand this even better. What happens is, as an author, until you sit in your laptop, until you sit with your pen and paper, you might not know what I'm going to write on that day. Okay, most of the times the writing is more extempore. You sit and start penning down, and then it comes automatically from somewhere, as I said earlier. So when I do that, I get inspired by that scene. Okay, when I write something and read it again by myself, I get so inspired. Oh my goodness, I have written it so well. So how am I going to name this character? Okay, so probably I would have started with a dummy name, and then I will change the name into a name which is closely associated, which has the resonance of that particular trait that showcased in that story. That is how it happens. So if you ask me, the deception moment, I didn't plan it to be Mahabharata character. The story I framed like, but then later I thought, okay, I think all the people who are coming into that story are powerful people. Unlike Gauri, Gauri is about common man world, whereas deception moment is about power centers, right? So when you're talking about power centers, obviously the traits of certain Mahabharata characters would be really interesting, I thought, and then I named it. In fact, there are so many um, things you will be able to find in the deception moment, which has a closeness with Mahabharata. For example, Mahabharata had 18 parvas. Okay, deception moment also had 18 chapters. Okay, and similarly, if you look at Devavrat, who is the protagonist of that story, will lose all his happiness in life because of three oaths he gives to his wife, three promises he gives to his wife. Same thing happened with Bhishma. He gave three promises to his father's second wife, and he faced all the problems because of that, right? And similarly, Draupadi in Mahabharata is a very sharp and beautiful woman. And similarly, in Deception Moment also, it continues with the same. So I also wanted to insert Lord Krishna somewhere because without him, the story is incomplete. So in couple of places, Lord Krishna plays his, a cameo role, and then he comes and advise people here and there and go, right? So that is how it was framed. The entire story, I did not write just because I wanted to include all Mahabharata characters. The story got encapsulated initially, and then these Mahabharata characters were interspersed based on the characters it displayed in the story.
I think we can say that knowingly or unknowingly, all your past experiences or stories are affecting your writing, the journey.
See, I want to quote, to answer this, I want to quote the legendary writer, Mr. Sujata, who's from Tamil, literature world. He was once asked, where do you get the characters from? The answer was so very simple. All the characters I have written in my life have come from the real people I have met, okay, or from myself. But who is who and where I am associated in that is a noble secret which I will never tell to anybody. So that is what happens in my, I think it goes with every author. So if I'm writing a character, that character comes from somebody I have met, right? But whom I am resonating, whom I am actually modeling for a character is a noble secret which I can never reveal to anybody, I think, including the person who has inspired me.
Let it remain noble secret.
Yeah.
So we'll move on to a much broader question, as in, what are the lessons that you have learned from the journey as an author, just as an author, and what would you like to share to aspiring writers in order to become not just to become successful writers, but in the whole process of writing? How can someone start? How can someone, complete the story, writer's block, and all those things, and navigate to that point where they can approach a publisher?
See, I always say this, unless you become a good mechanic, you cannot be a good engineer, right? So it is very important to be a mechanic to be a good engineer. Very similarly, if you want to become a writer, you need to read. Okay, unless you read out of the way, it is not possible to become a writer, because writing is an essence of reading, end of the day. So I would rather say that if you want to become a writer, you start reading and don't have any frame lines for your reading. That I read only history, I read only politics, I read only mythology. No, don't have such frame lines. Read everything and anything you want, that interests you. What happens is, over the period, once you keep reading, okay, nowadays reading has become very easy because you have ebooks, you have audiobooks are also writing. All that you have to do is to listen to an audiobook and go for a jog for 1 hour, and you will end up finishing some 3-4 chapters, right? So if you read books, if you listen to those wonderful ebooks or whatever the audiobooks I'm talking about, it will create an essence over the period, and then you will have an urge of writing something. So the biggest trait you need to display here is discipline. Self discipline is very important. So nobody should tell you to read and write. What you need to do is, every hour, this is what I did from my very very early years. Even today I follow that. I read at least half an hour every day and 10 minutes of writing every day. Okay, anything or everything. For example, I go and write a blog, I go and write a LinkedIn post, I go and write a story, I go and write a poetry. Whatever I feel like, I go and write. Similarly, I read something. Some days I read biographies, some days I read fictions, some days I read something related to history, right? End of the day, half an hour of reading, and 10 minutes. Even if you want to read more, it's very good for you, but I'm saying half an hour of reading and 10 minutes of writing every day for continuously for 3 years will make you as a good writer. This is what it happens. And the expectation, I'll tell you, nobody will read your book. So don't have much expectation, especially your family members, friends. They will all tell you that if you publish a book, it will be great and all that. But once you publish the book, most of the people don't take your book and read. So instead of begging people to read the book you have written, my simple suggestion is, you have to develop a marketer in you. You should start marketing your book. How to market the book? You have to involve yourself in various marketing activities. You literally go and do evangelist job of talking about your book in every forum wherever you are given opportunities, right? That's what you need to do. I did that left, right, and center for my first book, Gauri. Wherever they called me for a small talk, I will go and speak about Gauri. And then slowly the Gauri became a bestseller. People who are unknown to you will start reading more. And in 3 months' time, I was able to see some 100 reviews coming in Goodreads, okay, which was something very phenomenal. And especially the biggest readers, if you go to Goodreads, you know that there are people who are known as best readers of the world. Okay, there is a ranking, and the top people in the rank started reading my books, and then they started giving four stars, 4.5 stars for my book. So that is the motivation moment. So once you get such motivation, then the people known to you will also start reading. Then only the natural market will start listening to you. So that is my sincere suggestion. Don't worry about your friends not reading, family not reading. Start writing every day 10 minutes, and have the guts to tell your stories to the world.
That was really insightful, sir. I hope aspiring writers take note of this.
Thanks.
Now, on to a little bit more specific to you. What are your long-term goals as an author? Where do you see yourself? This is an interview question, I'd say. Where do you see yourself in 5 to 10 years as an author?
It's a template question, no?
It's a template question, but this comes from a perspective of just an author. I know you're pursuing different channels of profession, but just as an author, what are your long-term goals, and what are the specific themes or genres that you wish to explore moving forward? Now that you have explored, romance and thriller, what are the different things that you aspire to do?
If you ask me, any author will say this. He or she wants to become a bestseller. But if you ask me personally, my goal is to write interesting stories, okay, and let it become a bestseller or not, that's a different thing altogether. But I will definitely not be stipulated to one genre. Okay, that is my only motive here. For example, Sathya Sam means every book will have a different flavor. That is my brand element. Okay, so that is the visionary I'm looking forward to. Over the period, what I will do is I will explore as much as different types of genre I'm able to explore, and that is also very interesting. For example, the deception moment has got a time machine. If you had read the book, right? And in none of the movies across the world, I have seen a lot of movies that handles time machine, because the movies are very common, especially in English. You see a lot of movies. In none of the movies they show how a time machine is made. Okay, they will simply say that the time machine is, suddenly they found a time machine somewhere, right? But in this story, the deception moment, I have put across how the time machine is being created, right? So my lawyer, when he was doing a copyright things for me, he told me that exclusively you have to take a copyright for this time machine ideology which you brought in, because none of the stories have got technique of making a time machine. If a physicist is reading the book and want to see whether whatever I have written in terms of making a time machine goes exactly with what the science is, it will be matching. Definitely, it will be matching. So I didn't want to look it. When somebody is reading, especially a specialist like a physicist reading this book, I didn't want him to look it as a joke. I wanted this to be in reality. So what I did for that, I did a lot of reading. Though I'm not a science student, I'm a commerce student when I was in school. In spite of that, I did a lot of reading in science, and then I made sure that the time machine which has been built in that book is, if somebody is theoretically correct, right? So why I'm saying this as an example is because every genre I'm trying out, I will certainly be getting involved in the reading of that. So that gives me a lot of knowledge and a lot of interest as well. For example, imagine I'm writing a legal thriller tomorrow. I'm not a lawyer, but then probably I will get into reading the sections and the other penal codes and all that, which will help me to understand the legality aspect of it and write a better story. So that is what I was looking forward to. So if you ask me personally, that is my future goal.
So we can expect as many genres are there in the world
Certainly.
as possible from you.
Certainly, undoubtedly. And none of the genres will be connected to the previous one.
Full versatility.
Correct.
So, one last question before we wind up. Sure. How do you conceptualize one story or one idea when it comes to you? Because multiple ideas come to you. How do you pinpoint one idea and then conceptualize that? And as you said, you are exploring different genres. What is the genre of your next book?
Conceptualizing, it's a, I would say that it is just a ray, okay, that flashes in front of you. Uh, Generally, that's how it happens. You see an incident that happens somewhere, and that incident will instigate you to write a entire full-fledged book, okay? And that particular incident should be very interesting to you. For example, coming back to the deception moment, The deception moment is all about a raw officer traveling to a different timeline and finding a solution for it. So raw officer finding a solution for it is very common. It's very easy because raw officers are destined to do that. But what if the timeline changes? Okay, then he doesn't have that currency, he doesn't have the dress code, he doesn't have those days of probably the dialect, right? In spite of that, how will he able to manage? So I wanted to make the situation little more complex of making a connection from the yesteryears to the future. So what if the same guy has to travel 100 years later and finish the investigation? So I have handled three different timelines in that story. One is the present, the other one is a past, and the other one is a future. So end of the day, what happens is the spur of writing this entire story is how the raw officer will handle if at all the timeline changes. That is the one liner. So the one liner is developed as a full-fledged story over the period. So as I said earlier, I generally take some 3 to 6 months time to conceptualize the story and then do the readings according to that for the next 6 months. Okay. And then finally sit for writing. When I'm writing, I'll take hardly takes 3 to 3.5 months. So the entire story writing, the timeline is taken for that is about 1 to 1 year and 3 months. So in the time period, I will finish. So coming to the next story, um, as I said earlier, I'm the obviously the genre is different from what I've written. It's not a science fiction. So the story is a political thriller connected to a movie industry. So I'm not a politician, I'm not a movie star. In spite of that, I have done a lot of research speaking to the people who are connected to these two different industries, politics and also movie. And in India, politics and movies are intertwined, right? Most of the film stars becomes politicians, and similarly, most of the politicians do act really well, right? So I thought there is a good connection between these two fraternities. So I have penned down that story, and the story is with the publisher right now. I hope it should be released by this April, May, or if not, it will be later this year. It will be a very good really in the time period which I'm going to release the story will be very good for the book because it's going to be an election season 2026 in many of the states around. So this story is very well connected to that, and it talks about the life of a superstar in the movie industry and also a life of a politician.
So you said you found love in your MBA days. What advices do you have for people like me to find love in IFMR or in your B school?
So you want them to sack me today from this institution? But anyway, I will tell you, I have one disclaimer here. The girl whom I loved during my MBA days was not from IFMR. So obviously, I'm not a good person to give an advice for loving a classmate. But one thing I can tell you, uh, when I was in MBA, I was into the relationship, and the relationship really motivated me to do well in my studies. So as long as it complements your career and shape up your studies, I think there is no harm.
Okay, sir. I'd like to compliment someone else's studies. If you're interested, kindly reach out. Now, yet another question. How to convince our parents? Let's just say your advice works and I end up in a relationship in this college. How to convince my parents for love marriage?
I don't think nowadays it is a convincing is a big task. Parents are open-minded, and as far as you have selected the right partner for your life, parents will get convinced, I believe. If you ask me in my personal life, I didn't take a moment to convince them because I know their choices, and luckily the girl whom I chose was of their choice. Okay, so I feel that it is more about finding the right person who will be not only be suitable for you but also for your family. Right? That's how it works well. I think even better than me, Chetan Bhagat can answer you this question because in two states he has done a lot of good job on that. So if at all if IFMR Speaker Club meets Chetan Bhagat one of the days, he will be the right person to give you the answer to this.
We'll ask the same to Chetan Bhagat if at all he features. In lines of Gauri, how can I balance a dynamic relationship if I have two girls in my life?
Okay. I think I already have two girls in my life.
Oh, is it so?
Yeah.
Till now.
Yes. One is my wife, the other one is my daughter.
Oh.
So as long as it is your daughter and wife, there is no problem. Otherwise, stay with one.
Okay, sir, I'll keep that in mind. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
It's a very interesting proposition from you, and we are all waiting for your new book to launch.
Thank you. My pleasure.
I'd like to thank you for a wonderful, a really fun and entertaining conversation with you. I hope our viewers find this podcast as interesting as they find your class as well. And we hope to see you soon with your next book so that we can discuss more on the political and film industry mix up that you have made for us. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. In fact, I'd like to thank Vivek and also Anton and team, and also the Speakers Club, IFMR Speaker Club, for inviting me to this talk. This discussion was really, really wonderful, and I really enjoyed. In fact, it took me back to the Gauri writing, days, and I rewinded a lot of things during the discussion. Thank you so much for this. Coffee was also wonderful. So nice meeting you, Vivek. Thank you.
Thank you for joining.
Thank you.
Thank you for watching. Stay tuned for the next episode with the next surprise guest. See you soon. Bye.